The Cold War is an ideological confrontation between the East and the West, between communism and capitalism.
Without a doubt, an important aspect of the Cold War was the information struggle. The techniques used by the Soviets, and particularly organizations like the KGB, included forgeries, misinformation, disinformation campaigns, just general overt statements from newspapers.
An authoritarian tool that was used against open and free societies to exploit divisions in liberal democracies. For example, in 1959, there was a KGB, a Soviet bloc operation in West Germany that tried to reignite anti-Semitic feelings. A couple of hundred small incidents were partly staged, but then very quickly actual anti-Semitic acts were committed. So the line between fake anti-Semitic acts in early 1960 and real anti-Semitic acts became very blurry, very difficult to say where the line was.
Vast majority of it was a propaganda campaign.
KGB acquired an entire pile of secret and top secret documents in the 1960s from an American spy in Paris. He then decided to reuse these files for publicity purposes as a disinformation operation. The operation was effective because American war plans at the time were pretty aggressive in the 60s. So, for example, actually in a war plan, dropping a nuclear weapon on a West German target, that wouldn't go down very well in the West German press. The Soviets exploited the outrage and the fact of secrecy here. That political dynamic, the driving of wedges between allies here, was exploited again and again.
Here is target number 1 for the Reds. And who's in the bullseye? You are.
In the early and middle stages of the Cold War, the US and European governments were slow. They were far too cautious. They were not offensive in any way. And so what we saw, though, is by the 1980s, with governments in multiple places, both in the US and the Europeans, they got notably better at establishing interagency processes and getting information out quickly and responding quickly to those.
The way the information is conveyed is totally different now.
They are using the same tactics, but they are using 21st century tools that are amplifying them.
So instead of radio and newspaper and television only, we now have the internet and social media dimensions.
You see that with Internet Research Agency based in St. Petersburg. They're churning out thousands of messages a day, which influence people around the world.
So we have information that's getting to populations quicker, but we have governments that are reacting far too slowly to it.
It's the lack of knowledge of what is at stake, what is happening, and a national consensus to say we have to fight back against that.
It's vulnerabilities in the West, partisanship, the rise of nationalism in countries like Hungary right now that are also being exploited. I think right now Western Europe and the US are reacting to the information campaign much like they did in the early phases of the Cold War. Too slow, too reactive.
The part that I think the European Union needs to play is to strengthen itself. Right now, it's being used as a punching bag by Russian disinformation and malign influence. But I think this action actually has to happen at the state level, the national level, because what Russia is exploiting are divisions within societies, and they take on the color and the hue of what is driving and dividing that society.
More important in the future to have the training to sort of look at the internet, this confusing thing, this information that's highly accurate, very helpful, and information that is poisonous and fake. And then to be able to say, okay, this is good and this is bad, and I'm going to tell you why and how to make sense of this.